昨天木头姐接受了安东尼的访谈，他为我们描绘了一个双面的未来一面是传统企业在通缩和科技冲击下面的挣扎，另外一面是拥抱 AI、区块链和机器人技术的企业呢，正在迎来一个成本近乎于零、效率近乎无穷的黄金时代。
We're going to start talking about deflation more and more, and I believe interest rates are going to come down more than people expect until this productivity-driven boom is obvious.
If we get deflationary forces or get actual deflation, is that bad for Bitcoin in the short term? All right. Let's start with inflation and deflation. One of the things that's interesting to me is I've been talking about, deflation is a bigger risk. I see you tweeting about it. So you're, in spirit, we are locked in this together. What is your read on why deflation is a bigger risk?
So it's a risk and an opportunity. So there's bad deflation and good deflation. If you look at the government measures, they will tell you today we're kind of stuck in this 2 to 3% range. If you look at a more modern indicator, trueflation, I think you feature it as well, Anthony. I don't know if I should call you Pomp or Anthony, but anyway.
Call me a Cathie fanboy.
Oh, you're funny. Thank you. So trueflation is down to 0.8%. And so it too was stuck in that 2 to 3% range. It is resolving to the downside. And I think it's going to go negative. When I see Pepsi cutting the price of potato chips and Doritos by 15%, I take note. And when I hear Coke saying, yeah, it seems like there's a bit of a backlash against price increases, I take note. Today, the existing home price inflation rate dropped to 0.9% on a year-over-year basis. And we think that's going to go negative. New home prices are already falling on a year-over-year basis. Gasoline prices falling.
这段对话呢，揭示了一个极其重要的信号。宏观经济数据呢正在发生严重的滞后。木头姐指出呢，美联储和传统的经济学家呢盯着2到3个%的通胀率，那其实是基于过时的统计方法的幻觉，而更实时的指标显示的0.8个%呢，已经无限接近于通缩的边缘。我们可以从2个维度来去理解木头姐提到的现象。那首先就是坏的通缩，也就是需求端的萎缩。百事和可口可乐作为消费品巨头呢，长期以来拥有极强的议价能力，但现在呢，连他们都不得不通过大幅降价15个%来去挽回消费者。这个就说明消费者的购买力已经触达红线，对价格极度敏感。那其次呢是资产价格的松动，住房市场和能源价格的下跌呢，通常是经济降温最直接的反馈。木头姐认为，这种通缩信号呢，将迫使利率以远超市场预期的速度来下降。
The good deflation is associated with technologically enabled innovation. And, the AI boom is massively deflationary. The AI training costs are dropping 75% per year. AI inference costs, so what it costs when you query ChatGPT or Grok, what it costs to answer that, that's dropping 85 to, if you believe DeepSeek, 98% per year. And I think the productivity gains that we are seeing accrue to enterprises, that is going to turn around in a number of ways. One of them could be price declines. So many people think, these corporations are going to simply increase their margins. Well, China is exporting deflation. I know with tariffs, we're countering it, but isn't it interesting that our inflation rate did not accelerate with tariffs? It remained stuck. I think we're going to see a lot of price declines in the future.
这是木头姐最核心的观点，我们正处于好的通缩之中。什么是好的通缩呢？它不是因为没人买东西来导致这个价格下跌，而是因为科技呢让生产成本大幅度的降低，从而使得企业能够在保持盈利的同时呢，以更低的价格来提供更好的产品。他引用了令人震惊的数据，AI 推理成本的每年的降幅呢 在85%到98%之间。这就意味着原本昂贵的知识服务和技术支持呢，正在迅速变得廉价甚至免费。很多人担心关税会推高这个通胀，但是木头姐观察到，尽管美国实施了关税政策，通胀却依然停滞不前。那这是因为 AI 驱动的生产力提升对冲了关税带来的成本的上涨。他预测呢，未来企业不会仅仅把这些节省下来的成本锁进这个利润表里面，而是通过降价来去争夺市场份额，从而引发全行业的成本优化。
Many people are asking, is this just a hype cycle? And, should we pull away? I don't know if you've seen the markets in the last couple of days, but, now algorithms are assuming that AI is going to destroy industries wholesale. This is not what happened during the late 90s. And I will get back to your question. In the late 90s, when Jeff Bezos said, we're going to invest so much more than we expected because this opportunity is so great. And that means we are going to lose so much more money than you, shareholders, expected us to lose. The stock absolutely took off to the upside. Any company saying that today is getting hammered. So we are in a completely different environment. Your question was the various parts of the administration being united. You mean when Kevin Warsh comes on board? Right now, of course, Powell is not at all aligned with Trump. You mentioned dollar devaluation. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Treasury Secretary Bessent, who knows all about currency markets and knows how important they are, is saying a strong dollar is in the interests of the United States. Now, many people look at what happened last year. The dollar went down quite significantly. But if you look at the dollar in a long-term context, just go back to the early 70s and see where we are now. You'll see that the dollar, again, this is relative to other currencies, not relative to gold. The dollar is at closer to the upper end of the range, with the exception of the 85 blowout of the dollar, than it is to the lower end. And I think the policies of this administration suggest to us return on invested capital here in the United States should go up relative to that in the rest of the world. What do I mean by that? We've got massive deregulation. This government understands how much we have hurt ourselves relative to China with thickets of regulation, and they're trying to peel those away as quickly as possible. We got a tax cut where for the first time in our tax history, for the next 3 years, as long as the construction of a manufacturing facility starts by the end of 28, during its first full year of, or during its first year of service, the company building that facility will be able to depreciate it not over 30 to 40 years, but in the first year. So massive tax refunds coming back to reinvest. Where we are seeing tax cuts for the consumer to some extent, certainly at the margin, in, tips and, overtime, Social Security, and autos. So I think we're going to see massive refunds here in the first quarter. And I think that the rolling recession that we've been in for the last 3 years, PMI being down negative, for saying manufacturing's been negative for the past 3 years. We've seen housing and got a terrible number today, 3.9 million. We're back to the lows in existing home sales. I think we are going to shift from that to a rolling recovery into a productivity-driven boom. And I think one of the things that is becoming obvious when you look at how they revised the employment numbers down by 860-something thousand over the last year, if in doing that, what they effectively said was, okay, given this level of GDP, and we're more sure about GDP because of national income accounts and so forth, it must mean that productivity was higher last year if we revised employment down like that, which in turn means that real GDP growth was higher and inflation was lower.
木头姐在这里对比了当下的市场环境与90年代的互联网泡沫，她认为现在的市场呢非常理性，甚至有些过度谨慎了。现在的投资者呢不再为讲故事和亏损来买单，这个反而说明我们正处于泡沫的反面，也就是技术已经成熟，成本已经降低，正处于大规模应用的爆发前夜。更重要的是呢，是宏观政策的转向。他提到了全额折旧这种极其激进的税收优惠政策，这个实际上是在变相的就给制造业发放巨额的现金补贴，鼓励企业在美国本土大规模的投资基建。他认为呢，过去3年制造业和住房市场的低迷呢，其实是滚动式衰退，随着监管放松和税收优惠呢，美国将进入一个由生产力驱动的长期繁荣期。
Deflationary forces or get actual deflation, is that bad for Bitcoin in the short term?
No, I don't think so. Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation and deflation, because the chaotic part of this is, and it's ripping through the markets now. A lot of traditional industries and companies, being brought, the whole SaaS space, the disaster, as they're calling it. We think there is merit to that particular one, but I think you're going to see disruption all over the place. Because the 5 innovation platforms that I mentioned are going to disrupt the existing world order. And what does that mean? If these technologies are so deflationary, it's going to be tough for the traditional world that's gotten used to sort of the 2 to 3% inflation, to adjust. They'll have to embrace some of these technologies faster than expected. So the idea of counterparty risk, I think, is beginning to surface. We've seen it with First Brands. We've seen, private equity and private credit, especially, is where there have been a lot of excesses. SaaS, they are too exposed to that. Are we going to see counterparty risk manifest more broadly? If so, Bitcoin doesn't have that problem, and so it is a good hedge against deflation as well as inflation.
这是一个非常独特的视角哈。通常人们认为比特币是数字黄金，主要用来对抗通胀。但木头姐指出呢，在通缩环境中间，比特币同样具备极高的价值，原因在于交易对手风险。在剧烈的技术变革中间，许多依赖传统商业模式的公司，如传统的软件外包、部分私有股权投资呢，可能会因为无法适应 AI 带来的降维打击而崩溃。当这些传统金融节点出现违约风险的时候呢，比特币作为一种无需中介、去中心化的资产呢，其独特性就凸显了出来。他认为呢，当传统世界因为通缩而陷入债务困境或信用危机的时候呢，比特币将成为资金的安全避风港。
A proud Tesla shareholder, I'd love your thoughts on Elon, XAI, SpaceX combination. Do you think he's going to combine it with Tesla? How you look at all the work that he's doing?
I think that ultimately he could, and he started. We have been using the word convergence for a long time. I'll give a plug to our Big Ideas 2026, and you'll see a section by Brett Winton, our chief futurist, called The Great Acceleration. And you'll see a sphere in there showing how all these technologies are converging one with another. And at one point in the last, I'm going to say 6 weeks, Elon said, "You know what? I think my companies are convergent stories." So we thought it was interesting he used that word. So SpaceX XAI does not surprise us at all. I think he's going to let Tesla run here for a while. Because the robotaxi revolution is just beginning. And I do think he wants that story, to become very clear to investors. And it will. He doesn't want to, combine with anything and confuse confuse what's happening here. And as you know, we have very big expectations for robotaxis. We love it that Tesla and Waymo are competing against one another. And we think, the stock, Tesla stock, if you look at it, it's been in a very large trading range for the last 5 years. And I remember the last time I said that was when Tesla was going through manufacturing hell, and there were people out there saying Tesla's going to go bankrupt. There's no demand for these things. It had been in a very wide range for 6 years back then. And I said, the history of long bases like this is they either break out or break down. And we very much think Tesla's getting ready to break out again. And then Elon will have more degrees of freedom.
木头姐呢，一直是特斯拉最坚定的支持者之一。她提出了一个关键词，就是收敛。这就意味着马斯克旗下的 AI 公司、航天公司和电动车公司呢，不再是孤立的个体，而是共用一套底层技术逻辑。他特别强调了 Robotaxi 自动驾驶出租车的一个潜力哈。在木头姐看来呢，目前的特斯拉股价正处于长达5年的底部横盘期，这个在技术分析上面通常预示着一个极其强劲的爆发。那只要自动驾驶的逻辑被市场彻底认可，特斯拉将不再被视为一家简单的汽车公司，而是一家拥有全球最大分布式计算和机器人网络的科技平台。
What are you worried about in 2026 from a portfolio standpoint? What are the things you're paying attention to, and what could potentially change your mind on some of the allocations that you've made?
Yeah, what's happening in the last week or so in particular reminds me of the early days of COVID. Nobody knew what to do. And so algorithms just sold everything off except for, the safest stocks, the most cash rich, and cash flow generative companies. And I remember as I was looking at it, it's an algorithmic move taking place in the market and causing a bit of a downward spiral, in innovation related stocks. Now, unlike COVID, we're probably not going to have massive fiscal stimulus in the way that we got back then. So we're not going to come out of this with a big boom, but they're selling the baby with the bathwater again. And so it gives active managers an opportunity to, in our case, concentrate towards our highest conviction names. I think the biggest risk out there is that Powell, who will only be in place until May, that Powell is not, and the other Fed board members are not understanding the deflationary undertow that is beginning to take place here. And they will not, because they're not looking at the right signals, and because they're looking at government data, which is all, wrong and based on the industrial age, they could miss this and will be forced into a response when there's more carnage out there. I think that's what I'm worried about right now. I think this is the opposite of the bubble, tech and telecom bubble. Right now, we're seeing all of the beneficiaries of AI, and every stock in our portfolios we have been looking at through the AI lens for actually the last 5 to 10 years. And so we believe we have the beneficiaries in our portfolios, but there's so much confusion out there on AI that, it's baby out with the bathwater, as I just said. And then you have this overlay of the policymakers once again being late. A lot of people in the crypto market and in our markets are technical analysts, and they use the 200-day moving average, 200-week, and they see it break. So, there's an algorithmic technical move taking place here. And, as I always say to our team, truth will win out. And we definitely are on the right side of change. And we believe we are in the right companies that will benefit mightily from not only the AI revolution, but the convergence among these technologies. When you think about the way traditional research is set up in traditional asset management, it's set up incorrectly to understand what's going on here. It's set up by sector or industry or sub-industry. Many companies have 5 healthcare analysts, 5 consumer analysts. In the world of innovation, the right way to look at the world today is by technology. Involved in those 5 platforms are 14 different technologies. We have set up our analyst responsibilities by technology. So they are experts in a given technology, and they are generalists when it comes to sectors and industries, because these technologies are converging and they are going to impact every sector, every industry, every company.
在视频的最后呢，木头姐表达了她深深的担忧。她认为美联储就像是一个看着后视镜开车的人，盯着那些滞后的基于过时工业模型的政府数据呢，而忽视了实时发生的科技通缩。这种迟钝呢，可能会导致利率在高位维持过久从而引发不必要的市场动荡。那么同时呢，他也对华尔街的传统研究模式提出了挑战。如果家银行还按照医疗或者是汽车来去划分部门，他们将永远无法理解为什么特斯拉能够做出机器人，为什么 AI 能够改变这个制药行业木头姐的ARK基金呢，采用的是技术为核心的研究架构，这个让他们能够看到跨行业的融合趋势。无论你是否认同木头姐的激进观点，不可否认的是，生产力曲线的斜率呢正在发生巨变。通缩不一定是灾难，它也可能是科技进步回馈给全人类的红利。对于投资者来说呢，关键在于你持有的是被时代抛弃的债务，还是引领未来的生产力工具。感谢收看本期的视频。关于木头姐的通缩预判呢，你有什么样的看法？欢迎在评论区留言讨论。我们下期再见。